Hey everybody, this is Filter Starcraft, back for episode number 11 of my Bronze to Master series. This particular episode is my Diamond League episode. If you've been following before, you'll kind of notice the big theme is just piecing together very slowly a very strong kind of macro-orientated style with one particular build. We're going to try to branch that out a little bit here. So for the Diamond League series, I'm going to vary it up a little bit. I'm going to talk about each specific matchup, and I'm going to talk how you take the play and everything you've kind of learned up to this point and expand on that. How you can do some pretty crazy variations that don't look like they're the same build at all, but in reality, right at their core, very, very similar. So we're going to take a look at that for each race. So we're going to look at Protoss, what we can do different against them, what we can do different against Zerg, what we can do different against Terran. This should be pretty cool because it's going to expand your play by a lot. You're going to end up with 8 or 9 builds you can execute really, really easily. And in turn, you're going to have a little bit more fun because you're going to do something completely different almost every single day, have a lot more fun with it, but you're going to be able to do it really, really well. It's not going to be a simple case of trying to learn 3 or 4 build orders brand new start to finish. It's going to be taking what you already know and taking that base and expanding it out. Because you've managed to build up to this point such a strong macro foundation, expanding out and doing different things with your builds is actually really, really simple and straightforward. If you were relying on simply following a build order and you're trying to hit all the timings within a food-based build order, things would be a lot different when you go to transition to something else. I do want to stress one thing before we jump into it, that is that you have a plan before you go into the games. So when the loading screen shows up and you see that you're playing against the Protoss, you want to pick one of your 3 options before you actually play. If you try to do it during the game or halfway through the game, you're going to end up with just a big mess and nothing's going to pull together very quickly. If you want and you feel like you've got a really good grasp on it, you're playing at a really high level, and you want to try to vary your build in game after you scout the opponent, make sure you practice with a friend and kind of figure out when to go a certain way or go down a certain path. But for the most part, you're going to really want to spend your time before the game going, hey, I'm going to do this 1-1-1 variation, or I'm going to do the ghost variation, or I'm just going to play it standard. So for this particular video, we're going to take a look at Terran versus Protoss. What we can do differently when we play against the Protoss player. We're going to take a look at 2 separate branches to the build. So the standard build holds up extremely well against Protoss. You can take this all the way through Masters, no problem. Just playing it the way it is. However, you want to have a little bit more fun, so we're going to vary it up a little bit. The first one I'm going to teach you is how to turn this into a little bit of a 1-1-1 variation. Now, I say variation because it's still going to be a fast expand, and you're going to take a really quick third behind it, but you are going to go for the Tank-banshee kind of setup with your units. Cool thing about this is it will kill a lot of Protoss players that don't have the right composition to deal with it, namely Colossus. If they don't have Colossus, they're going to be in a lot of trouble with this, so we're going to take a look at that. Second thing we're going to take a look at is a ghost play. So really early ghost to try to EMP some sentries out. That should be pretty cool. Both of them are about as effective as each other. The 1-1-1 variation is pretty cool because you get to play a little bit with mech and banshees without doing it as an extreme all-in. Hits at a very similar timing. I looked up some Puma games and tried to get similar timings. The one exception is you're a little bit short on banshees until they rally in, and your cloak is definitely a lot later. However, it's still a really powerful build. Now I'm going to talk about the strengths of this particular build. The main strength is that it'll come as a bit of a surprise. When Terran does a traditional 1-1-1, they're holed up in their base with a bunker. In most cases, Protoss is only going to realize that you're doing this once they get an observer into your base and they're able to pick up on anything you're doing. If they don't have an observer, then they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. The other thing about it that's kind of cool is it does force them to get an extra observer usually, just to handle any kind of potential cloak play. The other thing that makes it strong is it's pretty much good against everything. Doesn't outright kill Colossus players, but it definitely makes their life a little bit more difficult than they probably want it to be. If the Protoss player takes a fast third, it'll usually kill them. So it does some pretty good stuff. If they're trying to rely on just really gateway only, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble because the tanks are really good against everything except for the zealots. So you can do a lot of damage with this. It's a really cool variation. Kills most Protoss builds, as well as kind of maintains the game, keeps the game fairly even against other ones. Doesn't really have a huge glaring weakness anyway. We do have to talk a little bit about the weakness though. Like I said, it doesn't have a huge glaring weakness. The one big thing about it is your bio upgrades are going to come a lot later than they would normally. So that's unfortunate. You're still going to get your bio upgrades, but it's kind of going to be grab them all at once. You're going to have a whole bunch of naked barracks at a certain point in the game you're going to have to deal with. So that's kind of the big thing. Your bio upgrades come a little bit slower, but the amount of damage you can do is definitely worth the trade-off in some situations.
Mineral field depleted. Not enough minerals. Not enough minerals.
Alright, so we're going to jump into a game here. And the game is on Core Hull Compound. Now, the big part about changing up your style a little bit is be a little bit more map specific. If you feel like a certain build is a little more powerful on certain maps, then you'll be in great shape. So I feel like Core Hull Compound the Third is such a huge pain in the neck that doing something like this is definitely pretty cool. It'll at least let you get a pretty good contain on your Protoss opponent. So just going to execute the build as normal. There'll be a couple of changes here. And the big thing with this is it changes how the add-ons work and the timing of those. So it's a very, very subtle change, but it drastically changes the way your army looks and your unit composition looks, which is really cool. That's the best way to play, right? But it's also very familiar to how you've been playing before. A lot of other things will hit out at similar timing to how they have been, so very simple and straightforward. There we go. Got our barracks down. Let's grab that SCV. Make sure we send this guy to scout. And we're going to send him to scout just to make sure our very easy computer isn't doing any garbage. Not that it would, but play it out as realistically as I can. So when I'm talking about how it changes the way add-ons work, it's when you put up your 3 barracks, you still get them at the same time, you still get your gas at the same time, but instead of getting the add-ons for the barracks, you get a factory first, and then you get 2 tech labs and no reactor. And you're going to use those 2, let's make sure this guy doesn't get trapped. You're going to take advantage of those 2 tech labs for your factory and your starport. So for whatever reason my brain wants to do things like throw down a supply depot right now, which is not a part of the build, so we're still doing our 1 Rex expand. So grab an SCV to send him over. Drop our mule. SCV is under attack, but I don't really care. Yep. Nothing too severe, just a zealot. Throw that down. And now we're going to need to grab a depot and our bunker, just as normal. Now the really cool thing about this build is it's really good at holding on any kind of gateway pressure that shows up after about the 9-minute mark. You end up with a pretty robust army, especially when you take into account the fact that you're going to have a factory making tanks with siege mode. If he does a mortal bust, it's a little bit different, but doesn't change things up too much. So we're ready to make our second barracks here. As you can see, everything's timing normally. And I will be throwing some benchmarks and stuff like that up after I do this too, just so it's a little more clear. But I feel like this is best shown off in a sample game. Our gas is up. With those gases going up, that means that's going to finish soon, so we can start throwing stuff over there. Get everything in there. Start up our orbital. Get another marine under... I'm going to need an SCV before marine, so SCV, then marine. There you go. Let's start grabbing our gas. Now, I was a little bit late on the gas there, so I'm a little bit sharper with that. My factory will come up just a little bit earlier, and it helps out.
Upgrade complete. Not enough energy.
We're going to need a depot, and I'm looking to make my factory right at 100 gas. I don't want to wait, so there we go. Factory's down. Throw that guy right there. Got our recipes underway. Now I need to grab this gas straight away. And I need my 2 tech labs. A marine over there. A mule now. I'm really bad for wearing down certain mule patches, but what you want to do ideally is spread them out. If you wear down a certain patch, it's not good. Cancel those 2 marines. Gonna lift off and drop those barracks out of the way. And this guy's gonna slide over and make Starport immediately. Another depot. Throw that down. Throw down the Starport. And make sure we got guys and gas up there. We do. So we're looking good. Factory can start making a tank right away. Now if all your gas is good, you can grab your siege mode right away and you'll still be able to snag a Banshee when the Starport finishes. You'll still be able to snag your second tank. Need another depot here. You can bring SCVs along with the attack if you want to. If you do bring SCVs, you have to do damage. There's no getting around that. So just keep that in mind. There's my Banshee and my tank, and you notice how I have basically no money after that. Money is going to start to stack up really quick. Depots. Money's going to start to stack up really quickly after this, so another tank, queue it up, doesn't really matter, that's what I'm going to be making. So what you can do is throw down your 2 extra barracks. They're a little bit earlier than they have been in the past, which is cool. There you go, that's siege mode finished. We're right at 9 minutes. So we're going to move out here now. Put our tanks on siege on hockey number 2, start our next Banshee. And we're going to be looking for Cloak in field here. Now, it is a late Cloak, but it's still a good idea to get it. So we'll grab that now. It won't be finished for a long time, but if we happen to pick off an observer or something, we can definitely punish him for it. I'm going to miss a couple depots here, which is not cool, but is what it is. And then I'm going to sneak over here and take my 3rd base while this stuff goes up. So, here we go. I'm going to arrive at his base right at 10 minutes, which is a nice timing. I'm going to have extra money to grab my next 2 barracks. Make sure I get another tank on the way. And computer built an Artosis pylon. There we go. 3rd base is underway. So, we're going to grab barracks 9 and 10. And go ahead and take another gas. And I'm not microing this or paying attention to it, but see, next Banshee shows up. Those on hockeys. Pretty good amount of marines. Solid. So grab our 2 engineering base. Sorry for the background, where apparently I'm supply blocking and my brain is just not realizing it. There we go. So, again, really simple, straightforward idea with that. Okay, so really quickly I'm just going to go over the benchmarks from that last game, where we learned a little bit about a not all-in version of the 111. So, take a look at our benchmarks. First thing is 50 SCVs at 10 minutes like always, 345 natural like always. Differences here is our factory goes down at 6 minutes and 10 seconds instead of 6:50. Take our 3rd gas at the same time. Next we're going to add on 2 tech labs. At 7:15 we should be starting our starport on one of those 2 tech labs, as well as our factory should be floated over. At 9 minutes we want to move out and make sure we have at least 2 tanks and 1 Banshee. Make sure you squeeze in siege mode when you have the money as well. And then when you make your 3rd tanks, when you started that, you're going to have enough money to get Cloak, as well as get the next Banshee out. So you're going to be able to get Banshee number, I believe it ends up being Banshee number 3. And then after that, just play it out normally. I like to get my 9 barracks up and my 2 engineering base kind of all at once, and then just throw all the add-ons on. but you're going to end up in basically the exact same spot as you do with the other build. You just end up with a different style of push at the Protoss front, and it's really, really cool how it plays out. Alright, we're going to jump into the second game and second build here. Do it on Core Hull Compound again. So, the idea with this build is it's a bit of a ghost, it's not really a ghost rush, per se, not like a one base all in or anything, but if somebody's going for fast double upgrades, and they're trying to rely on sentries and zealots, they're going to have to play extremely well if they expect to hold this particular play. The idea being we're going to try to get our Moebius Reactor and our Ghost Academy out as soon as possible, and we want to attack with 2 ghosts. That was probably the biggest misclick of a supply depot I've ever done. But luckily it's not a ladder game, so I don't think the Protoss player's going to proxy 2-game me. So, again, I'm just going to do my build as I normally would. No variation to how you typically would play. So, go down our barracks. And it'll just be a standard 1 Rex expand. The only difference is I'm going to spend my gas a little bit differently. Again, gas is going to be the key dictator here for this build. It's cool, it's fun, it'll catch some Protoss off guard. It's probably not the strongest build. I know it's not the strongest build, but it's still pretty cool, and it will do some damage to Protoss, especially depending on what they're going for. Did you go for fast Colossus, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But you're still going to have factory, you're still going to have a Starport, you're still going to have what you need to defend against that in the background. So it ends up not being too big of a deal. And if they are trying to cheat with their units and rely more on sentries and zealots to defend early on, that's where you're really going to be able to take advantage. Do a lot of damage if they're doing that. The big thing about this is it does delay your infantry upgrades again. Now the nice thing about that though is if he goes for like a really fast double forge to get his upgrades up, he's probably going to die to this push. Or at least take a lot of damage. So, have that guy, send him over here. And drop that. We're going to drop our command center. Nice and clean. And next Marine in queue. Get another SCV, and then we're going to look for a supply depot. So, let's grab our depot. It's right there. It's not quite as poorly positioned as my first supply depot. Now we're going to look to make our bunker. So, depot, bunker, throw them back. Now we need to make our barracks. So I'm going to go ahead and make my barracks here. Don't quite need that guy out yet. And it's going to come up in 1 sec here. So there we go. Just enough money as he gets there. Now I'm going to look to dip into my double gas. It's fairly important that I hit my gas pretty much as quickly as I possibly can. If you are late on your gas when you do another one of these 2 builds, outside of the main one, it does slow it down by a lot. In the main build, it ends up not being the biggest deal ever. Here it is, start our transfer. Get our orbital up, throw everything down there. Get our guys in gas straight away. And we're going to be looking for our Ghost Academy immediately. So, there we go. I'm going to put it up now. And we're going to need a supply depot coming up. Throw that down. It's definitely a lot more findable line, this particular play. I need to grab our next gas too. In terms of your resources. So, I'll grab a tech lab and start some Marines up. Fire up on Moebius Reactor. And I'm going to grab another second tech lab here.
Add-on.
And from there, make some marines out of there. I don't want to start my ghosts yet, and the reason for that is I'm going to wait till Moebius Reactor's halfway done. Ghosts take 40 seconds to build. If you wait for halfway, you'll be in great shape. So, we're going to have our gas for our ghost now, so I'm just going to wait on my factory. I don't need a marine out of there, but I need one out of there, and 2 ghosts. Boom. Money's back down to nothing. Now I'm going to throw out, not that, I need a factory. Let's make a second Ghost Academy. And I should have depots on the way at you. We need another one, so throw that down. Start Stim up here. Combat shield still won't really finish in time, so you can see my ghosts are going to pop right after that research is done. I'm going to add in 2 Marauders. And there we go. You see I'm going to have a decent force here. And grab my Starport. Have my Reactor there. I'm going to snag combat shields while I'm at it. Throw down extra depots. And now I have my 2 Marauders. I'm going to move out. So, moving out just before 8 minutes. And I got 1 SCV that managed to sneak into my hotkey again. It's been happening a lot tonight for some reason. So I'm going to have really fast combat shields, really fast ghosts, but not much else. So I'm going to throw our ghost in hotkey number 2. If we check one, you're going to see 120 energy or so. So we're going to get a quick second EMP if we do make mistakes with our first 2. EMP is 75 energy, so by the time we get there, almost ready. Land an EMP on that stalker, and we'll go from there. And again, no problem taking our 3rd base. No problem grabbing our extra 2 barracks. And our medevacs are definitely later when we do this style, but that's what it is. Computer's GGing already. EMP is Nexus to use energy away so we can't chrono boost anything. And we're going to grab double eBay to make sure we can catch our upgrades up. So, again, still getting a good amount of barracks, still getting a half decent army, just a little bit different style of play. But ends up working out, it's pretty cool. You can see computer's dead. Definitely have to be good with your EMPs, but you're going to have some spares. That's kind of the cool part about it. So just to go over our benchmarks for our Ghost Rush, you're still going to be looking at 50 SCVs, you're still going to be looking at a 345 natural. Here's where it branches out a little bit though. At 550, you want to have your Ghost Academy planted. You want to take your 3rd gas when you plant your Ghost Academy. After that, you want to start Moebius Reactor as soon as the Ghost Academy finishes, and then you want to look to add on 2 tech labs to 2 of your barracks and leave the 3rd one naked. When you get to 39 seconds left on Moebius Reactor for your Ghost Academy, that's when you start your ghosts. The reason for that is ghosts take 40 seconds to build. You want to wait so that you have the opportunity to get them out with the benefit of Moebius Reactor. That'll give you 1 and like 3/4 EMPs when you get to his base, so that if he suddenly tries to bring out more stuff, you're going to have new EMPs up really, really quickly. At 7 minutes and 30 seconds, you're going to be looking to have your factory planted, and then what you want to do is start Stim and Concussive Shell as you're able to. So after starting the ghosts, you're going to want to make sure you can get those 2 upgrades going. If you have to slow down on one a little bit, don't worry. After the 2 ghosts finish, you want to make 2 Marauders. When you get those 2 Marauders, you want to push out. The reason for that is if he has a lot of stalkers, ghosts are awesome at EMPing everything off him, but you need some Marauders to kind of finish them off. So that's the idea behind there. Again, you're going to get your Starport after your factory finishes. You're going to throw a reactor on the factory. And then from there, you're just going to play the game out like normal. You're going to try to get your 3rd up at about 10 minutes. You're going to try to add on your extra barracks. You can probably afford a double engineering bay, so don't be afraid to do that kind of stuff. But this is all after you kind of push out around 9 minutes. and everything will just transition into normal everyday regular play, except you'll already have your ghost tech. Things that'll be delayed are your upgrades, but the big thing about that is if he goes for really fast upgrades and tries to get away with just sentries to defend his natural, or sentry zealot, something like that, you're going to rip that apart with your ghosts. So should be a pretty cool play. I think the Ghost Rush it's really cool. It's not quite as strong as the other two builds, so just your basic everyday build that I've been teaching you, as well as the 2 base 111, not all in at all by any stretch of the imagination. I think both of those are a lot stronger, but the Ghost Rush is definitely something that's really cool. Maybe you can use it on ladder, maybe you can use it on your friends, but it is actually a pretty cool build. It does kill off quite a few things Protoss can do. It does have its weaknesses though. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. This wraps up episode number 11 of Bronze to Masters. A couple things I do want to say. If you play these builds and you end up with some really cool replays, definitely hit me up on Twitter and send me a link to them. Really appreciate that. Or there's also a thread over on Team Liquid if you want to post some cool replays of these builds. Yourself pulling them off and having some success, or maybe you have a little bit of failure and you want to share or show how you fail. That'd be pretty cool too. So definitely hit me up in those two places. There's going to be a link to Twitter. If you search on over to Team Liquid, you can find my thread in the strategy section. It's really easy. And that wraps us up, so I'll check you guys out next time. This is Filter Starcraft.